Hi, I'm Phobos and you are watching A Game to Remember. So, since this is the first episode, let me explain what the series will be all about. It is not about giving a generic score or reviewing games, it is about reliving certain moments in gaming history which became immortal in our hearts and in our minds. Remember this scenario. When you were young, what would you tend to do when it was weekend? You finished all your homework, you finished all your commitments for the day, you had the full weekend for yourself. What would you tend to do? What my friends and I would tend to do was either buy a game for the weekend, which was not that often the case because games are expensive and as a young kid you don't have that much money, at least if you're not rich. Or what was more likely, you would rent one game from a video store. And on Monday morning my friends and I would talk about the games we just played for the entire weekend. And apart from playing soccer, this was mostly how we spent our time during breaks on the schoolyard. Nowadays this way of experiencing games was mostly replaced by internet activity. You instantly share everything on Steam or Twitter or on Origin or Facebook. And you gather trophies or achievements and you meet up online to play multiplayer. Back then it was really different. You would drop by a friend's house to play multiplayer, and showing off was not by showing someone your 100% achievement list for playing a game in a weird and funky way, it was by showing them that you know the game in and out and about how you conquered the game, how you enjoyed the game. I really miss these experiences and the way games were meant to be played, so I figured YouTube needs an entity on how to approach games and how games were approached back then. These games were truly games to remember. So, this is why I started the series, and I hope you will enjoy the series as much as I enjoy making this content for you. And since everyone remembers games differently, I would love to read about your memories in the comment section below. Of course, always about the games and moments in question, so we don't get off track. Because I want to point it out right now, some games will be featured more than once. Of course, there are so many moments that have to be captured and immortalized in this series. But now, without further ado, let's talk about the game for episode 1. And it is a game that most of us probably hold dear in our hearts and will never be forgotten, since it is one of the most influential RPGs of all time. Of course, I'm talking about Diablo 1. And I want to talk about my first experiences with the game and the butcher. So we are in for a treat. I hope you enjoy, and let's get to it. Diablo 1. What can be said about this game that hasn't been already said time and time again? I remember this game vividly. My brother rented it from a video store in early 1997, that is in Europe of course, and to be more precise in Germany. Back then I was just 8 years old and we always used to play Warcraft and Rock'n'Roll Racing for the Sega Mega Drive, that is the Genesis for all you Americans. So Blizzard was a familiar developer for us, but little did we know what this game had in stock. Remember, back then games like Diablo were not popular and little did we know of any game similar to this style. So imagine how blown away we were when we first glanced at the awesome graphics. I would tend to say that Diablo 1 aged really well. And back then there weren't little games with professional voice acting too. So many phrases became iconic to the Diablo franchise, most notorious of course.
Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen.
All the professional voice acting really helped to build the atmosphere and suspense of the game. Up until this point I rarely felt this immersed in any game world. I was used to RPGs like The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo, clearly more child-friendly compared to Diablo, and this game truly had a whole other charm to it. The grim gothic medieval fantasy style of the game left no doubt that I was in for a treat, the defining moment of becoming a true nerdballer. I would say, even for today's standards, it is blatantly obvious that Diablo was made for a more adult audience. Horrifying as it is, that was exactly what I instantly liked about the game. I was intrigued. Screams at night, townsfolk taken away, a haunted cathedral. Oh man, this got to be good. In retrospect, I think I really was a little too young for this kind of game, but then again, I used to play Duke Nukem 3D or Doom when I was only 6 years old, so I was used to violence and horror in games. Still, no game up until this point had such an impact on me, as I walked up that road to the cathedral only to find a severely injured man lying in a pile of his own blood, talking about the butcher and begging for vengeance.
Please, listen to me. The Archbishop Lazarus. He led us down here to find the lost prince. The bastard led us into a trap. Now everyone is dead, killed by a demon he called the Butcher. Avenge us! Find this butcher and slay him, so that our souls may finally rest.
I won't lie, at this point I actually was pretty anxious what kind of creature this butcher might be. And equally I was horrified as well.
Your death will be avenged.
Gameplay wise, I remember one thing in particular: fun. This game was and still is a lot of fun, even though its overall presentation is really stiff nowadays. While recording this footage I could barely stop playing because again, I was truly immersed in the gameplay and world of Sanctuary. Actually, there's not a whole lot to say about the gameplay, at least from the warrior's perspective that is. Just keep closing the distance to your enemies and kill everything in sight. Familiar, but yet fresh and satisfying. The simplicity of this game style was probably the reason for its success, at least as far as I'm concerned. And most enemies die with a single blow of your sword anyway. This made you feel almost invincible, but when encountering a unique champion in the random generated dungeon you realized pretty fast that you were far from that. Look, I actually ran out of health potions there and died with a glorious CD-ROM loading time lag. That's old school. Encounters like these made you realize that you had to be smart about your conquest against Diablo's minions. Yet another point for the atmosphere. Pretty impressive if you consider that you didn't even have any skills or abilities, just your simple swing of the sword, mace or axe. Oh, and let us not forget how you leveled up. Like I already said, I was familiar with RPGs like Zelda and never played an action RPG like Diablo before, so imagine my confusion when suddenly this level up button appeared. No sound, no indication, but the appearance of that button. That's it. Since I played a warrior, I figured I should put most of my points in strength, which is actually a good waypoint for developing your character, but little did I know that you should also spend a few points in attributes like magic to learn how to summon town portals, or dexterity to be able to hit your enemies more efficiently. Yes, in Diablo 1 it was quite common to miss your target. Let me guess, today they would call things like that bad game design. But well, now I'm just thinking out loud, I guess. While slaughtering your way through the dungeon, you came across a staircase after a while, which would lead you to the next level. I never actually understood why the staircase to the next level was just next to the staircase you came from. I considered that cheating back in the day, and still today I consider it somehow weird, but it's good for speedrunners, I guess. So, minding your own business, taking out one monster after another, you sooner or later came across this room in particular. Holy shit, what in the hell is this? There was no mistake that in this room the butcher has to be. I was genuinely frightened by the sight of this room, and rarely have I seen such a display of gore in a video game before. It really was just messed up in my mind, and I remember telling my friends about this room the next day after school, and they wouldn't believe me that such a thing existed in any video game. Yeah, times change. Even today I have to say that this room somehow reminds me of a jigsaw puzzle room or something. Not a pretty sight indeed, and much more horrifying than the joke of a butcher in Diablo 3, at least if you ask me. Coming across the room was the easy part. Now it was up to me to open that door and engage the monster head on. Again, I was genuinely afraid and really hesitated to open the door to begin with, but when I did, I was greeted with this classic signature phrase.
Fresh meat.
Oh yeah, it was on. I don't know about you, but my first reaction actually was to run away, until I realized that I should engage at once and not try to outrun him. Concerning this boss fight, there truly isn't much to say either. It was a punching match to the death and truly worked out to your index finger. How convenient if you consider that you will need that index finger endurance not only for Diablo 1 but even more for the sequels to come. But while recording this footage I actually remembered the Butcher to be much more difficult. I did not grind in the advanced to level up or anything, so maybe it is just that, more experience and index finger endurance. Eventually the Butcher died and you were awarded with a badass cleaver, the first awesome weapon in your possession.
The spirits of the dead are now avenged.
You had to identify the weapon by using a scroll or by visiting Deckard Cain back in town, so no right clicking and that's just that. It was more complicated back in the day.
Stay a while and
He would
listen.
actually charge you. On a side note, isn't that kind of stingy? It's not like I tried to save all your asses so you could cut me some slack and do it for free. Well, never mind, the Butcher's Cleaver was mine. Did not really look anything like the item you have in the inventory, but that's nitpicking now. I remember using this weapon up until the quest for Griswold's Edge, and that's quite a long way up until then. But that's another story. And that's the first episode of A Game to Remember. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode and the new content. Make sure to leave some feedback in the comment section below as well, because like I already said in the vlog, it is a radical departure from the content I used to do. So if you did enjoy the content, make sure to press the like button, it is really much appreciated. Also make sure to favorite, subscribe and share with your friends. And until next time, take care, have a good one and goodbye.